This is a Radio Shack DX-300 shortwave receiver. This was made, I think it was put out sometime in the early 1980s. And it looks like a digital receiver, but it's really not. It's an analog receiver that's got a digital readout for tuning. It is a bit unusual in that it uses, it's what is known as a Wadley loop receiver, which means that it's got circuitry that was originally conceived by an English guy by the name of Wadley, and it's a bit unusual in that it's actually got 3 different tuning capacitors in it. It's got a tuning capacitor here for the pre-selector. It's got a tuning capacitor to select the megacycle range, and it's got another tuning capacitor to select the kilocycle range. The advantage of this is that it tends to be a bit more stable than competing analog receivers, and it kind of combines a TRF circuit with a super heterodyne circuit to get kind of the best of both features. This one was not done particularly well. There's certain weaknesses. There was a company by the name of Yaesu that produced a similar model that was called the FRG7. It didn't have digital readout, but it was essentially the same type of circuit. They did it much better because it was a lot easier to determine exactly how you were tuning the receiver. There were indicators on it that this particular receiver lacks. So you kind of got to feel around. You know, when you're changing bands on this, you're not really changing bands. You are just turning a coarse capacitor a little bit further or a little bit lesser to get the megacycle range, and then you tune the pre-selector to get it to peak at whatever frequency you're tuning to from there, and you basically adjust the kilocycle range and the pre-selector until you get it to peak. Now this one was really a mess when I got it, and it's still kind of a mess. I'm not finished with it yet. Okay, this pre-selector, which is vital to make the radio work, was the tuning mechanism on it was frozen. You can kind of see that there's a variable capacitor here that's driven by this whole gear train here. It was all frozen so it wouldn't turn, and the reason why it was frozen is because battery corrosion had gotten into the mechanism a little bit and kind of froze everything up. I was able to get it unfrozen by applying a fairly liberal amount of penetrating oil in between the gears, in the shaft of the gears. This does not normally use any lubrication that I'm aware of, but it was absolutely necessary to get the tuning mechanism unfrozen, and it seems to work rather well now. You can see it moves up and down. Before it wasn't moving at all. So that was one thing that I had to do. Now, I mentioned battery corrosion. Okay, if you look over here, you can see some of this kind of discoloration here. That's all alkaline battery corrosion, and it had gotten on the board and underneath the board. I'm not going to show the underside of the board here, but it was a mess. What I had to do was scrape all the corrosion off the bottom of the board with a stainless steel wire brush, thick bristle brush, and that got it relatively clean. And then I had to unsolder the connections on the affected parts of the board, and then suck all the old solder off because it had been corroded and everything and contaminated, and then I put fresh solder on there. And when I got this radio, it wasn't working at all. There was nothing but a little bit of audio hiss on there. And I'll show you here. You can kind of see, it's kind of hard to see, but that connector there that you see, the round connector with the red plug plugged into it, it's all corroded from the same battery corrosion. There was serious leakage in this. And if you look here, you can see all the green crud and everything. You can see the corrosion on those terminals. Somebody left some batteries in there for a long time and they just leaked all over the place. Anyway, after I got done cleaning up that board, I was really surprised that I was really very skeptical that I was ever going to get this to work, because the damage was nasty. And it's very hard to get alkaline corrosion off. So anyway, after I did all that, the radio started coming alive. And I'll play it for just a couple of minutes. It's not perfect yet, but it's a heck of a lot better than what it was. Now, bear in mind, this radio was not working at all when I started, not even a little bit. And now I'm getting signal out of it.
Thank you, MyPillow. The alignment of my neck and back makes for a great night's sleep.
Okay, I'll show you how this pre-selector peaks the signal.
Is durable. I have two of them, and I travel.
See how that meter moves?
I put it in the washer dryer more than 20 times. That's how durable it is. And it's made in the USA, so you can count on the quality.
Very nice.
This is why thousands of people have tried MyPillow and love it. You get a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. And the premium MyPillows are the only pillows that have 4 different loft levels.
And that's where I'm at right now. I think this thing's kind of weird. When you first power it up, it takes a while for the signal to come alive. It just gradually increases in gain. So what I think is going on is that there's electrolytic caps on the board. There's a lot of them here, and there's a few of them here that are probably not so good. So I'm going to try to replace them and see if that fixes the problem. Anyway, that's where I'm at this point. I will maybe post another video after I'm done with this. Seems like a pretty good radio for what it is. It's not that highly thought of, especially compared to the Yaesu that it was an imitator of. So, it's okay. I'll continue on.